Beautiful. Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We are so excited to share this space with you and to have you here with us. We are four mystic mavens, four friends who have spent our lives. Well, welcome. Well, welcome, ladies and gentlemen.
Goodness.
I think my current live YouTube and my present one with you is actually going it simultaneously. So let me try that again. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We are so excited to have you here and to join us for our Mystic Mavens show launch. We are four friends who have connected with our passion on spiritual wisdom and our passion for raising consciousness, our desire to talk about the esoteric and the mystical and the new age tools that have helped us each to be able to get to this point in our lives where we feel that we can share some knowledge with you and where we will give you, like Kathy says, a smorgasbord of ideas for different points of view, of different ways of seeing these things that vary, and for you to be able to take whatever it is that suits you, that supports you, that will help you get to your next step. I'm Claudia Rockefort. I'm one of the Mystic Mavens, and I am an ICF certified coach. I'm an executive coach, but what most people don't normally know is that I've spent the last 36 years, on a spiritual search that came about from a deep pursuit of trying to understand why we're here. I almost lost my life. I lost the life of my best friend when I was 18 years old. And I was driving in a car accident and she passed away. And it made me question everything. And it made me question why I survived. It made me question what's the purpose of our lives? Why are we here? It made me question religion. It made me question God. It made me question everything that I knew as I knew it. And it's been 30 some years since that journey started. And I've looked deeply into self-help, psychology, understanding the esoteric, understanding the spiritual from very different points of views. And I'm here nowadays as a coach because it is my mission and my purpose to provide all of what I've studied and all of what I've learned and all of what I've experienced to be able to support others in their journey. And that's the common thread that ties us all. So I'm going to pass it on to Carol, who will share with you a little bit about her journey and why we're here to be with you today and to share our knowledge with you today. So Carol, please take it on.
Thank you, Claudia. I love your story. It's a really beautiful story and inspiring. So thank you so much. My journey started when I was probably between 8 and 9, maybe 10. And I didn't know that it started then, but I had an experience. You could call it a download from spirit, if you will, a message that I was love, that I am love. And I didn't know what to do with that, but I just knew that it was true. I innately felt that that was truly who I was and what I was. And so I went through my life and made my stumbles and falls just like most people. But I still had that burning desire to know what that message actually meant and how do I live it in the world. And as I went along in my journey, I began to continue to deeply question, who am I? That's a very basic Buddhist question. And not that I'm a Buddhist or ascribe to any one particular modality or doctrine, but it's a basic fundamental question that speaks to our existence. And so when I started to gain more experience, my formal journey started in astrology. helping people understand who they are through astrology. That was the modality that I first learned on my journey to being of service to others. And it grew and evolved from there as I grew and evolved. So that's been part of my journey in my life. I'm going to hand it off to Joanna.
It's so good to hear. We've talked so many times, but it's like this time I'm really hearing the story of why. It's amazing. And as I sit here and think about it, I mean, I guess it's always what I would like to say is some type of pain that kind of brings us to a place, or what I would say was what brought me to a place of searching out who I am and trying to understand just what you said, like, where do I fit in all of this? And you tell me God is this, and how do I work with all of this and understand it? And I wasn't a person that grew up with a lot of spiritual, or what I didn't know at that time was spiritual things, I wouldn't say, or like we didn't go to church or we didn't do those things. My mother was a single mother, so she worked. So a lot of times whoever could keep us, or so I didn't grow up that way, but it was the pain that I was experiencing in my marriage that made me really turn to church. And at that time, I was newly married, maybe 2 years at that time, and stayed married for 20 years. This is crazy when I tell this story, but I started going to church because I was wounded, and I didn't know that. Mm-hmm. I was really wounded. And the type of person that I learned that I am is very passionate. So I get involved in things and I'm like all in. So I got a biblical degree, a bachelor's degree in biblical studies. I went to school for 4 years. I got ordained in my church. And then I realized that my spirit still wasn't filled. There was somewhere else for me to go. And I realized for me, I was more what I call sin conscious than God conscious. And I needed to be raised to a different level, a different vibration is where God was really taking me at that time. And I did that, ordained in the church as a minister for over 5 years. And when I walked away, it felt like my entire world, my mother, everybody looked at me like they still look at me like I'm crazy. But what I can say is the tools and the things that I found along this journey has got me to be at this place, at this time, the happiest person that I can be for me. And I just am here to share that with everyone here. Kathy, I'm going to pass it to you.
Yeah, I like how you rounded that up of every step brought us exactly to where we are. So I think I was one of those strange child. I'm an old soul, and maybe you feel like that too, where you're born into this world and you kind of don't fit in and you're trying to make do in a way. But I always was aware of the energy and recognizing, like, I wanted to hug the trees all the time because I could see the energy around them. And it was interesting because my folks kind of had the cruddy dad story, the broken family. And when we moved to South Florida, my mom was raising 4 girls by herself. And this is back in a time when ladies, we couldn't even get our own credit cards at that point in time. So my mom, there was a lot of struggle and a lot of, there was betrayal with the dad and lots of stories going on. And it was, I had the desire, not so much my parents, but I wanted, like you're saying, to kind of know, I wanted groundedness and I wanted spirituality. And I asked, when I was young, like 10 years old, can we go to church? And so we were raised Catholic. So we would go to the Catholic church, and I'm like, a lot of this just doesn't make sense to me. You're saying one thing and I'm seeing another. And it was just interesting. I just had, we just have these stories that happen time and time again. And for me, I'm not going to name the denomination that seemed to come after me, always wanting to save me. And I'm like, I'm good with that. You can save me, but you got to tell me what you're saving me from and where we're going. And right. And I'm good with anything, I'm all about but my God that I knew was always an unconditional loving God. And I didn't see people who were walking the talk that they were. I saw lots of hypocrisy. And so I continued. It really hurt. I went to a college that was affiliated with this particular denomination. I did not know what I was getting myself into. And my entire 20s was like dark night of the soul, because I was so pissed at my Jesus, that he could let the teachings be bastardized in that way. And so it was a long journey, and marrying somebody first guy that I felt like I could trust, because I didn't have the tools that I know now of how to overcome the trust issues. And it's fascinating when you look back on your twisted, journey. I attracted people based on the wounds that I had at the time. So the trust things, I dated cheaters all the time. And then you just finally get to this point, you do the right thing, you live the American life, and you get to this point, like all three of you ladies mentioned, it's like, your soul is calling for something more. And I'm like, is this all there was? So I was, married. We had, the double income, no kids, kind of a beautiful life. And it wasn't enough for me. So it was awesome, because divorce was the best thing for me. It actually was my launch into finding my own voice and starting on the spiritual journey and reconnecting with some of the goofy things that I knew when I was 8 years old, climbing trees, about energy. And it's like, now this makes sense, so we go on our journeys. And for me, Joanna, as you said, it was a different pain in life. It was actually when my mom passed away, I recognized that, she had a stroke and went into our broken medical world. And that was a frustrating journey. Each doctor, was like a full-time job after, in the aftermath of that, trying to come back to wholeness, and so many different doctors and specialists looking at their individual parts and nobody looking at the whole. And so that started my quest. And so without getting too long, to me, the journey has been about coming back to making sense of how we find who we are, as each one of you have already mentioned, but how you find wholeness in this crazy mixed up world.
Beautiful. Thank you, Kathy. And I think it's wonderful that you mentioned, in so many ways, all of us have shared to some degree difficult stories. So it's interesting how we all seem to look for our purpose in the darkness of our souls. It is through pain, it is through trauma, it is through difficult situations that many times life or the universe gives us a big push in the tush to say, okay, this is your search now, right? And it's certainly the case for myself. It sounds like it was the case for a couple of you, even though as a child I was fascinated by the esoteric, I was fascinated by other things, but the mystical. It wasn't until I lived through this deep, deep loss and this deep questioning that my life changed, and that I had to dive in deep to look within and to look at everything that I knew and question everything that I knew, from the religion that I was raised with to every possible religion I could find my hands on. I could read about, I could study Judaism and Buddhism and Hinduism and Islam and Christianity and Judaism, and try to understand what were the sources and our origins and the history behind everything that at least for me, that I was taught as a child, and questioned it. And it's interesting that a lot of times it is through that pain that once we come through the pain, right, that we come to the other light of the tunnel, to the light at the end of the tunnel. And it is through the worst of our, I guess, life experiences sometimes that we look and find it. There's a beautiful proverb that says, when the student is ready, he will find the teacher. So that these truths come to us in the darkness of our souls, in the difficult times of our lives. If you are going through one of those, take heart. We are here to support you in every way we possibly can. It is usually through these dark times of the soul that we hit bottom, that we start to climb back up, and that we find ways to cope, and that we find paths and teachers and methods and tools that will bring light back into our lives. And so I wanted to share that because I definitely went through several clinical depressions, very, very tough times when I thought there was no purpose for me to be here. And I'm grateful to understand it neurologically, chemically now, to understand that there are things that happen in our bodies that we can't necessarily control, but that I can understand now that there's a purpose to all of it, even when we can't see it necessarily in that moment. And there's a deep trust. As hard as it is to lose someone that you absolutely love, that there's a purpose to the unfoldment. There's a greater wisdom in the universe that we can count on some level. And so, Carol, what is it that was that driving point that you would say was that turning point or that climax that brought you into this deep understanding of what you do?
You know, I think each person's crisis is their own. It's crisis is relative to how and what we're living in our life. And my life, I didn't have some of the experiences that some of you have had, the trauma, but I had a tremendous fear of just being in the world. Literally, I was afraid of other people. And I hid that for years and years and years and years. And, you know, you come into this world and you meet other, and they can be scary. Others can be scary, especially when you see how they operate. And having had the experience that I did as a child, that I was loved, I didn't see love out there in the world. And it scared me. How do I navigate this world? And so what I did was I became a wallflower. I was very quiet. In my family, there was a lot of yelling and screaming. And so I remained quiet. And I was told I was a young child amongst adults. And whenever I thought I had something to say, I was told, no, you don't. You're saying a lot of words, but nothing's coming out of your mouth. That's exactly what was said to me when I was a child. So I shut down, I shut up. And I didn't speak for a very long time. But that got me into trouble because how it manifested on the outside was nobody's listening to me. Nobody can see me. Nobody can hear me. And so I manifested things that would cause negative reactions. I felt isolated. And so I would try and grab attention in unhealthy ways and interrupt into conversations that were inappropriate. I would get upset when I would say that I had something to say, but everybody was, you know, swirling around and not paying attention. So while I didn't have a very traumatic childhood, I had things in my life that caused me to shut down and shut up and feel afraid of literally being in the world with others.
That is traumatic.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
That is.
And I don't know about you, but I felt like a little green giant. I felt like it didn't belong. I felt different. I felt like somehow nobody was going to be able to understand me.
Exactly. I felt like an alien. I even wrote an article recently on that. Do you feel like an alien?
Yeah.
I love that. That's great. Because that's really how I felt.
That's exactly how I felt. And I felt like I didn't belong anywhere. Felt like I was literally dropped from heaven or dropped from
Wow.
the universe.
Yeah.
Now what?
Now
What do we
what?
do with that?
Now what? Exactly.
Now what? Yeah.
Yeah.
And
You
you
want-
found the path.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, what was the question? How did I forget what was the question?
Well, I was asking
I'm getting so engrossed in the stories. I'm sorry.
I love it.
Um,
No, what brought you to this search? What brought you to search for this path for yourself?
Happiness. True
Mm.
happiness.
Search for happiness.
The search for happiness. I was I was at work, and after 20 something years of doing I wasn't, maybe I was up to 20 years by then. No, this started over 10 years ago, so I wasn't. But at work one day, and I was the only married person. Everybody that I was working with that morning was single. It was a Monday morning. I will not forget this because we were coming back from the weekend, and everybody's talking about their weekend. At 6 o'clock in the morning, we get our coffee, our tea, whatever, and we're sitting there having breakfast before you start your day. And everybody's talking about what they did for the weekend. And I was like, oh, I went to a car show with my husband. I took the boys to basketball, football. Like, I was telling them my weekend, this is what I did. And they said, well, Joanna, what did you do for you this weekend? And I go, that was my weekend. They goes, well, what do you do to make you happy? And I couldn't answer that question. I went home that day and cried because I had no idea. And I sat there that morning and it hurt me because we're laughing and we're joking. They was like, well, do you like to do this? Or do you like, and they're helping me and it's a joke. But deep down inside, it was my reality. I had never took time to find out me, like nothing. And I mean, I went from helping my mom take care of my brother to being my husband's wife and a mother. And there was no in between for me. So I did, as a teenager, I was told what I can do, when I could do it, and how I could do it. And then I got married and then followed those rules and regulations. So, and I hate to say rules and regulations because I am changing my perspective of a marriage now. So,
Oh, that's good.
yeah, because I do want to be married.
Got new rules now.
But you fall under certain obligation and the way you must act and certain things, and that's a part of being married, or even as a mother and becoming a mother. I was only 23 when I had my first son, so I was young. And now at 30 something years old, and I'm asked the question, what makes you happy? I had no idea what I like to do. Now I could tell you, I like to go out to the beach, sit out, let the water just not even touch me, just sit on the edge, maybe put my feet in and just take a walk out to the beach and take, like, now I could tell you what I like to do. I've been divorced almost 4 years now though. But I had to do that to figure out me. Some people don't understand it, but I feel like that was my moment. Like I had to just figure that out.
And
So
you're so
is
not
Joanna-
alone. I was at a networking recently, and that was the question: is what is your passion? And it was disheartening to hear how many women couldn't even voice something, just as you're saying.
Simple.
And that's the thing here, is that all of our stories is our collective stories. So which one of us here, these crazy ladies, do you resonate with? And it's so beautiful to see you come alive, Joanna. I just adore your life.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I
Claudia,
wanted
you had a question?
bring in a little quick question, which is it fair to say that you didn't come to that realization about yourself until you actually went through your divorce?
So
You
the
had to
thing
ask
was,
yourself
right. the
your
thing
identity
was,
outside of family, motherhood, and wife.
all the roles that we play, and it's,
Mhm.
but that realization felt like a torment for a very long time. And because just like Kathy said, like you're sitting somewhere and you're like, this is what I'm supposed to do. This is great. I'm married, 2 kids, a house. I have a 6-figure job. I have everything that you could possibly ask for, but there's an emptiness that's sitting there. And that went along for, I'm telling you, this is over 12 years ago, I started that journey. And I'm just divorced 4 years. So it's definitely a process. And it's a process to get up every day and still say, I got this. Yeah, it is.
So it's fair to say on some level that there's a deep self-analysis, a deep self-actualization that happens through these traumas or through these realizations about ourselves, about where we are in our lives, about whatever's happening, right? That moves us forward on some level. And it takes us to the next level.
And during therapy, that's what my therapist told me. The universe is up in the ante, Joanna. It's time for you to move. Mm-hmm. So I keep that with me is, okay, it's time to up the ante. So every time we get a little comfortable is what I like to say for myself. When I get comfortable, the universe ups the ante. Mm-hmm. And I just can't be comfortable. No.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you for that.
I think that's what's happening.
It's so true.
Oh, goodness. That's how it's kind of worked out in my life. Every time that I feel like, oh, okay, I can take it easy for a moment. It's like, no. Something comes along and shifts and changes everything. And
right.
I have a move. I have a big life situation. Thank you for that. I appreciate
either life will cause the intensity to happen, or we have to find a way to maintain our own intensity about the work.
And that's it, to maintain that intensity so we don't get comfortable. That's the balance.
Sometimes we just create it, right, Carol? Sometimes because of our beliefs, because of where we are, because of what we've gotten used to, we need to draw that same energy over and over to ourselves unconsciously. We're recreating it without realizing that we need the drama, but that we need to find a reason to create the chaos in our lives. And that's
well,
so
to me, I think chaos is one of the most creative forces. And so it's all about our perspective. Like nothing has meaning except for the meaning that we give it. And so when there's chaos, like there is so much chaos now, it's actually a highly creative time, and it's uncomfortable because we have to let go sometimes of the things that are in our life right now, but we can't see what's coming down the pikes that's going to be even better. And it allows us to become the next best version of ourselves and weave all those old broken threads into the next beautiful, tapestry of our lives. I believe that the universe is always, everything's working out for me. And, the crash and burns are part of that beautiful story that becomes the next revelation that soars me higher. It might be the stimuli at the moment that's feels like a prick or a crazy calling to come here. It's like, okay, where? But it can look lots of different ways, and it's truly up for us to come to a relationship with what that looks like. And I think so much of it is just our own internal perspective towards it.
Absolutely.
So powerful, Kathy. Thank you, because it is, right? Our perception is our reality. Mm. Whatever we perceive to be true is the truth for us. Whether it's true in terms of facts or not is another story. But whatever we perceive to be true is true for us,
right?
For everybody, right? And so whatever we believe to be true, whatever we think, whatever our perceptions are, that's what's going to form the way we see our reality. And it's a very powerful thing to stop and think about what that means.
Actually, if I could share one of the episodes in my personal journey, and I love this because, Joanna, as you said, sometimes it's a gradual unfolding because we're not diving in. Other times it's a big crash and burn kind of a thing. So, and I like to say transformation can happen at the speed of awareness, because this is one of my journeys, was the broken dad, lots of trust issues and abandonment issues. And so 100% of the time when I was 23, I was attracting fellows that cheated on me because that was my belief. And I had this guard, this protection mechanism up about, I want someone who cheats. So what? I had this huge heart wall. So I was guarding myself, but I wasn't giving fully either. And so 100% of the time I was attracting the guys that could only meet me where I was. But so it's an uncomfortable pattern when you date that guy. And so I would, the protection mechanism, I would go for geeky guys and then they'd cheat. And then I'd go geekier and geekier. And finally I met Robert. I don't think he's watching tonight.
But we all like them.
You just muted yourself, Kath.
You're mute. We can't hear
Come
you.
off mute.
Yeah, there might have been some profanity. No. But I knew I was safe with this guy. And then when he cheated, I happened to be studying Buddhism because my Christian conflicts drove me outside of my home religion to explore different paths. And I was doing meditation with a Buddhist monk, and I went in for healing with him. And I said, this happened and this pattern can't repeat. I can't do this again.
Share this space with you and to have you here with us. I'm so sorry.
That's right. And so it was awesome because when I walked into his office, he says, okay, this has nothing to do with these guys. And I said, yeah. So out on the table I went, and he started doing energy work on me. And who'd have thunk that I'd be able to, this is the kind of stuff I do now, is just pulling anger out of and our bodies, like you said, Claudia, our bodies are these somatic experiences of what's going on and on these other levels of our consciousness. And so he was pulling all this anger out of my liver. And it was forgiveness time, and it was quick. And that day, my life changed. That belief was stripped from the cellular memory in my body, and never again did I even worry about the trust thing. So the nugget I wanted to throw in here is that it can look so many different ways, but at the core of all of our stories is the belief in the stories that we were telling ourselves. And so if there's an aspect of our lives that isn't working, you can believe that there's a belief under there that's not serving. So I say we can have lots of truths, lots of things that are supportive of you, but if you've got those nuggets like the pea under the mattress, that is a lie. And a lot of those for us commonly right now is a lot of unworthiness, or it's not safe, or I'm not deserving. Those things will be in the foundation and not allow you to go to that next level. So until we up level our beliefs and our way of thinking, and get the support like we got right here, it'll limit where you can go. How high can you fly? How good do you want life to get? And I love the theme that we've talked about too, is what we were really looking for is that happiness and that, the unconditional love, like Carol, oh my gosh. And Claudia, just those core themes, like we all matter here. We matter. We deserve to be here. And this is potent times. Like we chose our little souls, crazy of the choices that may have seemed. Our choice was to come here now. And so even if we don't know what that reason is right now, trust that there is one, and that you're in the process of uncovering it as we speak.
Here.
Yeah,
Definitely.
it's so true. We matter because we are here.
That, absolutely. And that's the part that I think we forget, is just because we are here, we have everything. We're safe. We're like, everything is already laid for us. It's just going back to our belief, our perception, and everything like that. Because the minute our worlds fall apart, the stuff we tell ourselves is unbelievable.
This is the question, Mona. Quick question. That's the question. Can we trust it? Can we trust that because we are here, that's enough? Can we trust that because we are here, we are meant to be here? Can we trust in the more divine, that there is a purpose to all of it? And I think that's what we found in our journey, which is fascinating and which was beautiful. But I don't know about you. I certainly questioned it as a teenager. I certainly questioned it in my 20s. I didn't know why I survived, why I was here, why I was still alive. Like, I didn't think there was a purpose to any of it. And
Mm.
that's what prompted my search. So you talked about two things that I think are fascinating. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about is our truth versus our perception. We're going to do a full show about this later on, because this is a very powerful subject. But we touched upon it tonight in your answers and in your sharing, right? It's how we perceive reality creates a reality. And the other thing we talked about, or that you ladies brought up, was this aspect of, okay, do we trust our purpose? Do we trust that because we are here, we are living in purpose, that we are destined on some level to be here and to be doing what we're doing? So I'd love to hear all of you share your perspectives on those things.
Dang, she's going deep on us.
Sorry, ladies, but yes.
Well,
Making Carol
I
cry.
really, yes, I have a teary eye duct, so it just have to blot it out.
I have the
So I
same thing,
apologize.
Carol.
That's
I
just the
do.
way it is. You hear me?
I feel like I have suntan lotion in my eye, but this one's tearing up too.
You know, it's what my experience is, and I can only come from my experience. Like you said, Claudia, we live through our own reality tunnel. And the more we make that real, the more we can accept and see others better. But because I'm living from my own reality tunnel, my own truth and my own experience is all I can share and rely upon. So my truth is what I experience. And direct experience is what dictates my truth. It's like, you know, very basic. If somebody tells me to not put my finger in the fire because it's hot and I'm going to get burned, and I don't believe them, I'm going to put my finger in the fire and I'm going to get burned. That's experience, right? Then I know the truth of the experience. So that's all I can base my own truth on. Everybody else is going to have their own lived truth.
So I have a question off of that. So because the mystical, as it is sometimes so in other words, you're saying, how do we trust it? But you're trusting something that you're not having a direct experience so much with. We're being asked to trust it before you actually touch it. So how?
I know.
Go ahead.
Then we don't want to talk. I love it.
So I got the speaking magic wand. I'll go. To me, like you said, it's an experience of it. And I think the big calling right now is for us to go within and experience it from within. Oprah Winfrey was speaking to the Harvard graduation class. And she was saying, when you come to a big decision, she said, you know what you do? You do nothing. And you go within and you quiet yourself until you hear the voice within. And sometimes that voice sounds like batshit crazy. and at the same time, there's an inner knowing that is your truth. And I think each of us probably have had that experience in your life where you're called to make a change or let go. For me, I had a business that I loved, and it was time to let it go. And you know, you have to follow those impulses and that trust your inner knowing. To me, the big journey at this point in time is to cultivate the practices to listen so the voice becomes louder, so you can trust it without so much doubt that it takes you years to take the first step. So the sooner we begin to trust what we hear within, the sooner life, instead of the big ebbs and flows like that, it can become a more gentle beach wave. So the ease and joy that I think we all are craving right now. And yet, you know, we get to experience life in this human suit. So there's going to continue to be contrast, but doesn't need to hopefully be quite so dramatic.
Yeah, and I think you're right. Also, crisis is the thing that causes us to listen, right? When we're humming along and we're not paying attention when things are happening, and we're not paying attention to the, you know, the signals to wake up. And then suddenly there's a crisis that comes along and it says, if you don't now, you never will. And so, yes, those are the voices that I have heard that says it's either now or never. Do it now or just, you know, forget about it. Live in your own little misery. And I didn't want to live in my own little misery.
Stay in your little life.
Don't ever expand. Yeah.
So I think that the things that you were talking about, Joanna, were, you know, the things that are the intangibles, the thing, and Kathy, that you were talking about, the innate knowing, the inner knowings that we don't know where they come from. They just are
Right.
there. We have to be able to trust them, because if we don't, then we can't trust anything. When we don't trust anything, we have no ground to stand on.
Right.
And if
So to make this very
and
tangible,
trust
sorry.
begins with us, trust begins within ourselves, and then we can build out from there to others.
It's powerful. And I love that you brought that up, Carol. To bring it to kind of earthy, tangible ways for everybody. It's what we would call intuition on some level, right?
Mhm.
It's when we listen to our heart center. There's so many ways to call it in spiritual practices, but we can talk about heart-centered meditation. We can talk about inner knowingness. We can talk about inner wisdom. We can talk about there's different ways of saying it. And intuition, sixth sense is kind of how we mostly frame it. But are we listening to that inner part of ourselves? Can we hear that guidance? Can we trust it when it comes up? When we hear that little voice inside of ourselves that says, maybe not this way, right? Or maybe take this direction, or maybe relax and sit and wait and don't make this choice yet. Or don't make a move immediately, even though you want an answer. That intuition that talks within us, can we begin to trust it? Can we sit in that place of trusting the universe and trusting ourselves enough that within us is the answer?
And I think that's what Kathy was saying about having to, everyone has that voice or their intuition that speaks to them every time they say, I knew I should have made that left. Or like, something told me I should have turned right. You know, we've all said it. Like, that something told me is our intuition, is what I tell people. And like Kathy said, it's a matter of just getting in tune with it and actually getting to know it before you can trust it. So it's easy to say to trust that voice, but we've all done something, or that when we were like, Dad, I knew it. Something told me that I should have grabbed that hat and it'll start raining, or the umbrella, and you never grabbed it. We all do it, you know, and no matter where we feel like we are in our spiritual walk, there's times that we ignore that voice, or we're just not in tune with it. So like Kathy is saying, I believe, is really trying to, not trying, is coming in tune with it and listening and saying, okay, if I do make that left, let's see what happens. And that's what I call testing the universe, because now, if you told me to do this, then it got to work out for me. But it's now, after years of different spiritual practices and tools, am I becoming more clear with what's being said to me? Or am I actually trusting it a little bit more and moving with it? And that's what I really believe. We don't trust what we're being told. A lot of times it'll come up as simple as give somebody something, and we don't. It could be money and be like, I only got $100 in the bank. You want me to give them 75? Are you crazy? And we don't, but we don't trust what we're being told or led to do sometimes. And I feel like that's the part where we have to grow in, and it happens slowly. It's not a overnight process. So that trust is something you grow with and really tend to, like a new lover. You gotta get in tune to what they like and what they want to hear, and see how we gonna move you to that. Those
vibes.
Yeah, you gotta, and that's how I feel like the trust, it develops just like anything else.
Oh, beautiful, powerful. Food for thought, right? So are we trusting our inner voice? And we it's easy to see when we got it, we received it, and we didn't follow it. It was like, man, I wish I had followed that, or I wish I had heard that. That's easier usually than to say, oh, I'm hearing it, let me follow it now.
Right.
But I think it's a super important skill for us to have right now, because as our world is changing and the old, institutions that we've relied on for so long in history, as those begin to crumble, there's going to be a lot of uncertainty. And the only place I think we can source certainty comes from within then. And so it's vitally important at this point in time, if we're going to, maintain a little bit of sanity as we go through the transitions, is to really, really get familiar with the inner voice. My inner voice is named Ralphie because I'll never forget when they gave me their names. I was at a conference and I was journaling, and I would do kind of like God, writing with them and ask them questions. And it's uncanny if you haven't done that before, just the writing and the intuition begins to flow from within you, and things get written that you don't recognize. And the facilitator asked us, if you don't have a name, go ask them what their names are the next time you're journaling. So I asked them, like, okay, what are your names? And they said Ralphie. And Ralphie, I'm like, Ralphie, are you kidding me? And they said, yes, we are, because you need to lighten up here, Missy. So, again, I was the old soul. And I think if you are even listening to this channel, you too are an old soul. And I think we came here and we think we're going to come this bright little soul, and we know how unconditional love should be, and what brothership and all this, good living can be like. And we thought we were going to take it on all ourselves. It's not. It's a unified thing, and it's happening right now, and it's a process, and it's going to be uncertain and dicey at times. And we get to plug into messages like this where we hear the truth. And when you hear it, like, your body feels that what is true for you, even if it's you're hearing 95% of the people on the outside singing a different tune. When you hear the tune, that's your tune. Take the tune, sing your tune. And I think that's what the world needs. We don't need to say all of it, but if we can just be our little light wherever we are, that to me is the biggest contribution we can be. So find that inner trust, create the wisdom, the communication with your own weird Ralphies. And they're trustworthy. They never turn you to that direction. Yeah.
I love that. I want to just point out, this is beautiful to me, just looking at and listening to our conversations tonight. Kathy will always keep it light. She'll bring the humor back of any situation, and God bless you for that. We love you for it. I tend to try to go deep, and I get all, passionate about it, and that's just me. And then Carol will remind us all to not take it personally, and to find how we are owning our truth in everything that we believe in our own path. And Joanna will make us and help us to kind of just question, how did we get there? And how's it bringing us joy? So I love this conversation, because as you can see, with any subject as we go forward in our shows that we're going to bring with you, and sharing our life experiences as well as our wisdom, the things that we've studied, the things that we practice, the things that we facilitate. That's the beauty. It's all 4 different perspectives, from 4 different experiences, from 4 different beliefs, so that you can resonate with whichever one works for you. You can grab whatever suits you, whatever supports you. We are here to do that. And we are here to expand the conversation about the different ways that we view these realities. Right? And so,
Absolutely.
yeah. And I think it's a very powerful conversation when we look at it from different points of view. What's real for each one of us? What touches us? What moves us? How is it true for me? And we want all of these things to resonate with you in different ways that will support you, and where we'll hopefully we'll be getting your questions, answering some of your questions, and moving on in our next shows with all kinds of information that we've all experienced or studied or worked on that we want to share with you. And astrology, for example, is one of those blueprints that Carol is our master at.
I love astrology. It's one of the things that has really complemented my path. I was taught from a very transpersonal perspective, meaning trans is moving beyond the personal, and understanding how we are complemented and how we can move beyond just our small personal world. And yeah, it's just been so enriching. So thanks for mentioning that, Claudia.
My pleasure. It's going to be so much fun to talk about all of that.
Yes.
I know. I can't wait to hear
more about it either.
Yeah, that's what's so fun about the diversity.
You muted.
You there for a moment?
Sorry about that. That's what I love about this group, the diversity, and I can't wait to hear, learn from you too, Carol, about the astrology. So looking forward to that. And so how fun. We're going to be here every 2 weeks. So
No, every first and third.
For every first and third. So the next is September 18th. And raise your vibration. What is it and how to turn it up?
All right now.
Oh.
That must be Joanna's topic.
No, I don't think so. Who was it? Me? It's Claudia.
So
Yes. I'm so excited actually to talk about this topic, because you know what? I've spent 36 years, I guess, on a spiritual path and on a spiritual quest and understanding and studying and these things. And I kept hearing my guides or master teachers raise your vibration, but they never explained what that meant. So it was like, okay, I'm trying real hard to raise my vibration.
That's it.
So we're going to talk about what that actually means. How do we raise a vibration? How do we create a different level of consciousness and energy within our bodies that we radiate differently, so that we can understand that each word, each thought, each feeling has a vibration, for example. So that's going to be our next show. It's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to have you all there. But aside from that, we're going to be talking about so many different topics that we're all passionate about, that we each have a different specialty with. Carol's going to be talking about astrology, among many other things. Joanna's going to be talking about inner healing and about how to find that joy within. And Kathy, of course, is our vitality coach and our transformational coach. And she brings the joy and the fun and the lightness to everything, and that groundedness. She brings us right back down to earth and reminds us all to be very real, very true to ourselves. So we have over about 100 years of study between the 4 of us that we want to share with you. That's a century of work that you can tap into anytime you want. I hope that you will join us to ask questions about all of our subject matters, and so that you will feel like you can join us and see what of these tools and wisdom you can take away and what you put to use in your lives on an everyday level, and what you can question and what you can challenge us with. So please feel free to do that too.
Yeah. And you can look ahead at the schedule. We have a website, mysticmavens.us. So you can hop over there. If you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, and also the little icon of the bell next to it. Make sure you ring that and it'll tell you when we're going live. So if you're not here live, you can always check the YouTube channel and catch up on the episodes. But there's going to be some giggles and some really deep conversations on things that really matter right now. Our souls are calling for something more. It's time for consciousness to rise. And if you're listening to this channel, chances are you're a leader in that march. So welcome here, and we'd love to connect with you more.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here, for those that have been here with us, and we look forward to seeing you in the future. And we're excited, so excited to be bringing all our combined experiences to bear and sharing that with you. Until next time.
Yay!
See you in 2 weeks.